A man who ruled the most powerful empire on earth wrote his most important thoughts in a private journal. No audience, no followers, no applause. Just a man under constant pressure, surrounded by betrayal, carrying the weight of an entire civilization, talking to himself about how to stay human while the world tried to break him. Those notes survived 2,000 years. And what is remarkable is not that they are old. What is remarkable is that nothing has changed. The same traps, the same people, the same games, the same pressure to perform, to react, to collapse. Marcus Aurelius already mapped the exit for every single one. Most YouTube channels recycle the same 3 quotes from his journals. What you are about to read are the 10 rules that almost nobody pulls out. The ones buried in the pages most people never reach. These are not motivational lines. These are operating instructions for a life most people only dream about. Pay close attention, because these rules do not get easier to apply the longer you ignore them. The 10 rules. 1. Never mistake movement for progress. Marcus wrote about men who kept themselves busy as a way of avoiding the one thing that actually needed doing. Constant action without direction is not discipline. It is noise dressed as productivity. He applied a single filter to everything on his schedule. Does this move toward what actually matters, or does it just feel like it does? Most people fill their days with urgent tasks that serve nothing essential. Marcus called this the trap of borrowed urgency. Someone else's emergency becomes your daily life, and you end up exhausted building someone else's purpose. The rule: before you act, ask what it is actually in service of. Hold this one. Rule 5 is going to show you exactly how Marcus decided what actually mattered, and the answer is not what most people expect. 2. The quality of your attention determines the quality of your life. Marcus wrote that most human suffering comes not from what happens, but from the story the mind immediately attaches to what happens. 2 people face the same event. One is destroyed by it, one walks through it. The only difference is where their attention went. He trained himself to separate the event from the interpretation. The event is neutral, the interpretation is a choice, and most people never realize they are making it. Wherever full attention goes, the quality of that moment follows. A conversation given half your attention is a half-lived relationship. Work done with a distracted mind is a half-built life. 3. The person who exhausts you is showing you your own unexamined limits. Marcus wrote that when another person consistently drains your energy, the instinct is to blame them. But the more accurate question is, why does this person have access to that much of your peace? Every person who rattles you is pointing at something inside you that has not been resolved. The colleague who irritates you is exposing a standard you have not enforced. The family member who drains you is revealing a boundary you have not drawn. Marcus did not see difficult people as obstacles. He saw them as diagnostic tools. 4. Silence is not the absence of power. It is often the fullest expression of it. In his journals, Marcus repeatedly returned to the damage caused by words spoken in reaction, not lies, not cruelty, just words fired before the mind had time to decide whether they served anything. He practiced what could only be described as deliberate restraint. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he understood that the person who controls the pace of a conversation controls its outcome. Every time you respond immediately to provocation, you hand the other person the steering wheel. Marcus refused. His silence was not passivity, it was precision. Do not skip Rule 6. It is the one that will shift how every difficult relationship in your life operates, starting the next time you are in the room with someone who wants a reaction from you. 5. Only spend energy on what falls inside your reach. Marcus divided the entire world into 2 categories, things within his influence and things entirely outside it. He was ruthless about this division. He wrote that most human anxiety is generated by trying to control outcomes that were never available to control in the first place. The opinion of a stranger, the behavior of a colleague, the direction of an outcome already in motion. Every hour spent pulling at something outside your reach is an hour taken from something inside it. He called this the fundamental misallocation of a human life.
The rule is not passive acceptance, it is aggressive focus. All energy directed only at the small circle of things that actually respond to your input.
6. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Marcus noticed that people rarely have isolated bad habits. The man who cuts corners in small things cuts corners in important things. The person who is careless with minor commitments is careless with major ones. He wrote that character does not switch on for important moments. It is already running, quietly, in every small decision, long before the important moment arrives. This is why he obsessed over small disciplines, not because the small things mattered in themselves, but because the small things were the training ground where the real character was being built or eroded, one day at a time. 7. Expecting gratitude is the fastest way to build resentment. One of the most under-examined lines in his journals, Marcus wrote that when you do something good and then wait for acknowledgement, you have already undone part of the good. The moment expectation enters generosity, the generosity becomes a transaction. And transactions demand settlement. When settlement does not come, and it frequently does not, resentment fills the gap. He gave without tracking. He acted without auditing whether the recipient noticed. Not because he was indifferent to people, but because he understood that tying your peace to another person's gratitude is the same as handing them your mood to manage. You are almost at the 10th rule, and it is the one Marcus returned to more than any other, because it is the one most people understand last, usually after something breaks. 8. The obstacle is not in the way, the obstacle is the way. This is perhaps his most documented principle, but almost nobody applies the version Marcus actually meant. He was not talking about optimism. He was not saying obstacles are secretly blessings in disguise. He was saying that the thing blocking your path is the exact thing your path requires you to move through. Not around, not over, through. Resistance reveals capability. Friction develops strength. The moment you stop trying to avoid the hard thing and start treating it as the actual assignment, the entire relationship with difficulty changes. 9. Most people perform their values. Marcus lived his privately. This is the rule that separates his philosophy from every motivational framework built on public accountability. He wrote in a journal nobody was supposed to read. He recorded his failures more than his victories. He held himself to standards that had no audience, because he understood that a standard requiring an audience is not a standard, it is a performance. The question he returned to was not, what would people think of this decision? It was, what would the version of me I am trying to build think of this decision? That is an entirely different internal tribunal, and it produces entirely different behavior. 10. At the end, the only currency that holds its value is who you became. Marcus governed a civilization. He commanded armies. He held more political power than almost any human being in recorded history. And what he wrote about, privately, obsessively, was character, not legacy, not how history would judge him, just whether on any given day he had been the version of himself he was working toward. He wrote that everything else, titles, outcomes, possessions, reputation, was borrowed, temporary, returnable. The only thing that belonged entirely to him was the quality of the person doing the living. He never stopped working on it, not once. The final truth. You just read 10 rules that have outlived every empire, every trend, and every version of the self-help industry that has come and gone since Marcus wrote them. But here's what nobody says out loud. Rules without a system are just good intentions. And good intentions are the graveyard of most people's potential. The next video on the rational soul breaks down exactly how Marcus Aurelius built the daily system behind these rules. The private practices, the mental disciplines, the specific rituals he used to actually live this way inside one of the most chaotic, high-pressure environments in human history. Not theory, not quotes, the actual mechanism. Most people will never see it because most channels stop at the philosophy. The rational soul goes further. If you are the kind of person who is done reading about change and ready to understand the architecture behind it, you already know what to do. Subscribe to The Rational Soul. Turn on every notification. Do not miss the next one. The people already subscribed are already building. That gap gets wider every single week. Do not miss the next one. More truth like this? Subscribe now. The truth does not wait for people who are not paying attention.